There's famous, and then there's something else entirely. A level where your name stops belonging to you and starts belonging to the world. Where a single tweet crashes a stock, a single album reshapes an industry, and a single decision sends millions of people into a frenzy. These aren't just celebrities. These are institutions. And today, we're counting down the 10 names so powerful, the industry itself bends around them. 10. Oprah Winfrey. Before the internet could make anyone famous overnight, one woman built the most powerful media empire in television history with nothing but her voice and an audience that trusted her completely. Oprah Winfrey didn't just host a talk show, she created a cultural movement. Economists actually documented something called the Oprah effect, a phenomenon where a single endorsement from her could send a product, a book, or even a presidential candidate soaring. When she recommended a book, it didn't just sell well, it instantly became a bestseller. When she backed Barack Obama in 2008, researchers estimated it generated over 1 million votes. That's not influence. That's power. And she built it from scratch, overcoming a childhood marked by poverty and hardship that would have broken most people before they even started. Today, her network her production company, her partnerships, they all carry the weight of a name that spent decades earning the trust of the world. But what made Oprah different wasn't just her reach. It was that people believed she genuinely cared. In an industry full of manufactured personas, that authenticity became her most valuable asset, and nobody has quite managed to replicate it since. 9. Elon Musk. A few years ago, Elon Musk posted a single tweet, "I'm considering taking Tesla private at $420, and the SEC came knocking. That's the kind of world we live in now. His words don't just make headlines. They move financial markets, alter news cycles, and spark global conversations that last for weeks. Tesla, SpaceX, Neuralink, the Boring Company. The man has his fingerprints on industries ranging from electric vehicles to brain-computer interfaces to commercial space travel. But it's what happened when he acquired Twitter, now rebranded X, that put his name in a whole different category. The controversy that followed was relentless. Advertisers pulled out, users revolted, and the platform's value reportedly dropped dramatically. Reports and speculation poured in from every direction about his motivations, his alliances, and what his growing political presence meant for the future. Rumors swirled about his connections to governments and power structures that went far beyond the boardroom. Whether people admire him or despise him, they cannot stop talking about him. And in the modern era, sustained attention, even the uncomfortable kind, is its own form of currency. What Musk figured out, whether intentionally or not, is that controversy keeps you relevant, and relevant keeps you powerful. 8. Taylor Swift. When the Eras Tour launched, it didn't just become the highest-grossing concert tour of all time, it became an economic event. Cities that hosted her shows reported hundreds of millions in local economic activity. Hotels sold out months in advance. Local businesses prepared like they were hosting a major sporting event. Economists dubbed it the Taylor Swift effect. And it was real enough that the Federal Reserve mentioned her in an official report. That's not a musician. That's a force of nature. But her power didn't just come from ticket sales. It came from the calculated, brilliant way she's wielded her story. When she discovered she didn't own her masters, she didn't just complain. She re-recorded her entire catalog, encouraging her fanbase to stop streaming the original versions. That single move forced the entire music industry into a conversation about artist ownership that had been ignored for decades. And then there's the darker side of the discourse, the speculation around her relationships, her friendship circle, and what some online communities claim is a carefully constructed public image. Whether those rumors hold any truth is something only she knows. What's undeniable is that every era she steps into it completely, and the world follows. 7. Jay-Z. There was a moment when Jay-Z was just the best rapper alive. That moment passed, not because the talent faded, but because the ambition outgrew it. He became a billionaire, the first hip-hop billionaire in fact, and suddenly the music was just one chapter in a much longer story. Title: Armand de Brignac Champagne, Douce Cognac, a sports agency, a production company, a stake in a sports team. His portfolio reads like a corporation, not a discography. But with that empire came scrutiny. When Beyoncé released Lemonade in 2016, the world didn't just hear an album, they heard what sounded like a public account of infidelity, betrayal, and redemption. Jay-Z addressed it on his own follow-up album, 444, in a way that felt startlingly vulnerable for someone who had always projected invincibility. It didn't sink him. If anything, it made him more human, more relatable, and somehow more respected. Rumors about his personal life, his business dealings, and the circles he moves in have followed him for years. Some are discussed openly, others live in the corners of the internet where speculation runs wild. What's certain is this: his name carries a weight in every room he enters, boardrooms, studios, courtrooms, that very few people on the planet can claim. 6. Rihanna. For years, fans waited for new music. What they got instead was something far more disruptive. While the world begged for a ninth album, Rihanna quietly built Fenty Beauty into a billion-dollar brand, fundamentally changed how the beauty industry thought about inclusivity, and launched Savage X Fenty into a cultural moment every time a collection dropped. She didn't just release a product. She made a statement that beauty wasn't one shade, one size, or one standard. The industry had to catch up. Then came the Super Bowl halftime show in 2023, and in one performance she reminded everyone why she was never just a businesswoman. She was an icon first. The performance broke streaming records almost immediately. The most talked about detail: she was visibly pregnant, performing at the biggest entertainment event in the world, not hiding it, not downplaying it, just there, completely in control. Reports claim that appearance generated over $5 billion in media value. Meanwhile, the speculation about when the album is coming hasn't stopped. It's only gotten louder. Some fans have been waiting so long it's become a running joke, a meme, a cultural phenomenon in its own right. But that anticipation, it's a kind of power too. 5. Kim Kardashian. The name Kim Kardashian is one of the most Googled names of the last 2 decades. That fact alone should tell you everything. She turned what many dismissed as notoriety into one of the most valuable personal brands in the world. Skims, her shapewear company, reached a valuation reportedly north of $4 billion. Her KKW beauty line was acquired in a deal worth hundreds of millions. She passed the California baby bar exam and has been working on criminal justice reform cases that have resulted in actual people being released from prison. The complexity of what she represents is genuinely fascinating. A person the media spent years mocking, who quietly outplayed almost all of her critics on nearly every financial metric. But the conversations around her don't stay in the business pages. Her family's cultural impact, the questions about what the Kardashian machine has done to beauty standards, and the ongoing discourse about authenticity versus performance, all of it keeps her name in constant circulation. Some people can't stand her. Some people are obsessed. The one thing virtually nobody does is ignore her, and in the attention economy, that might be the ultimate achievement. 4. LeBron James. There is a version of this list where LeBron James is number 1. He's not just the most dominant basketball player of his generation. He's one of the most powerful athletes in human history. The Spring Hill Company, his production house, has produced content that sits comfortably on major streaming platforms. He co-owns an NBA franchise. His HBO show More Than a Vote galvanized athletes across professional sports to use their platforms in a way that hadn't been seen in decades. He built a school. A literal school, I promise, in his hometown of Akron for at-risk kids. And yet, the debate never ends. The GOAT conversation, LeBron versus Jordan, is one of the most reliably divisive arguments in sports, with passionate camps on both sides who will go to war over statistics, rings, and context. Beyond the court, rumors about his business relationships, the inner workings of his teams, and his approach to loyalty have been dissected endlessly. People speculate about everything from his political aspirations to his future in Hollywood. What makes him unusual is that, unlike a lot of celebrities who gain cultural influence over time, LeBron walked out of high school as the chosen one, a Sports Illustrated cover before he played a single professional game. He spent his entire adult life living up to a title someone else gave him, and somehow he keeps delivering. 3. Beyoncé. There are artists, there are superstars, and then, sitting above both of those categories in a space that's hard to define, there is Beyoncé. The Renaissance era reminded everyone that her ability to shift culture isn't declining with age, it's accelerating. The album sparked a renewed global conversation about Black queer artistry, electronic music history, and what it means to make a statement with your work. The tour that followed became one of the highest grossing in history, and the film that accompanied it was treated with the kind of seriousness typically reserved for prestige cinema. What makes Beyoncé genuinely unique in this list is the silence. Where others flood the internet with their presence, she operates with a level of calculated mystery that makes every appearance feel like an event. No interviews unless she controls them. No candid moments unless they're intentional. The lack of access has turned her into something almost mythological, and her fan base, the Bayhive, operates with a loyalty and organization that has no real equivalent in the celebrity world. Rumors surround her constantly about her marriage, her friendships, her creative process, and the alleged rivalries that occasionally surface online. Most of them go unanswered. The silence, it turns out, is the strategy. When you don't explain yourself, you leave room for people to project, speculate, and ultimately stay engaged. It's a masterclass in mystique that nobody else in the industry has been able to replicate. 2. Drake. For a long stretch of the 2010s, Drake was the most streamed artist on Spotify year after year. His name became shorthand for a particular kind of success: commercial dominance, cultural fluency, and an ability to make music that hit across demographics in a way very few artists ever managed. He built OVO sound, signed artists, shaped Toronto's global identity, and made the Six a recognizable reference point worldwide. Then 2024 happened. The beef with Kendrick Lamar didn't just produce some of the most talked-about diss tracks in hip-hop history. It reopened every conversation people had quietly been having about Drake for years. Kendrick's "Not Like Us" became an anthem. Drake's responses failed to land with the same force. And in the fallout, questions that had circulated in the corners of the internet moved into mainstream discourse. Allegations surfaced. Fan communities dissected everything from his lyrics to his personal associations. Drake denied claims, threatened legal action, and the whole saga turned into a kind of public reckoning for an artist who had spent a decade at the top largely unchallenged. His streaming numbers remain massive. His industry connections remain real. But the version of Drake that existed before that feud and the version that exists now are not entirely the same thing. What happens next for him is one of the most genuinely interesting questions in music right now. 1. Oprah, wait. No, the name at the top of this list belongs to someone who has dominated culture so completely, so consistently, and across so many different dimensions that even her silence generates headlines. Beyoncé. Actually, there's an argument to be made for someone whose name doesn't just rule an industry, but whose name has become the industry's most reliable measuring stick. Taylor Swift. You know what? Here's the honest answer. The top spot depends entirely on how you measure it. Financially, Swift's tour numbers are hard to argue with. Culturally, Beyoncé operates on a level that defies metrics. In terms of sheer global name recognition cutting across every demographic, every continent, every generation. That name is Oprah. Because before any of the others built their empires, she built the blueprint. She showed what it looked like when a name became bigger than fame, bigger than celebrity, bigger even than the person who carried it. Every person on this list in some way is chasing a version of what she already achieved. The question isn't who's at the top right now. The question is who's still going to be talked about in 50 years. And that answer, that's a conversation worth having.